Psychology in Seattle.
So, Berto, some people have some short questions for us.
Ooh.
And I thought we would answer in a long-form, narcissistic way like we usually do.
Like we usually do. Let's do it.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist, a professor, and I frequently suffer from allergies, which causes me to walk around with these handkerchiefs where I blow my nose all the time.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I just started a new business selling handkerchiefs.
Well,
And I love talking about short questions that users, especially patrons, ask us.
So, famous patron Lyndon asks,
FPL, woo, woo!
what is a skill you thought you were good at that you realized you suck at?
So this one's going to be funny because I don't technically suck at it, but by relative degrees. So, and this might surprise you, video games. Okay, so when I was a kid, I thought I was good at video games, right?
Like what?
Like in Colombia, I had this little game called Canyon Climber for the color computer, and you just had to jump these arrows and then jump these other arrows and then jump these little mountains. And I was like, oh my God, I can get to because it gets faster every level. And I was like, I can get so fast, and I would really get in the zone. I'm like, doom, 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 like that kind of thing. And I just thought, I'm so good at this. And then, then I moved up to the States, and I remember the first time I found out I sucked at video games is I'm over at my friend Paul's house, and he's showing me his Nintendo, and I've never seen a Nintendo. He's like, oh yeah, and so he pulls out this game called Contra. You remember Contra, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he puts Contra in, and he's like, all right, you'll be the red dude, I'll be the blue dude, okay. And I'm just like going, and I get killed like instantly. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, I'm just learning the controls. And then we keep going, and I get killed again. And then he puts in the code for like 30 lives, okay? But
Had you played Contra before?
No, I never played it.
So you thought you were good at all video games?
I just thought I'm a great video game player. Yeah. And so they're sitting there going, and he goes through, like, I start going through all my 30 lives, and then there's this ability where he can donate lives to me. So I go through all my 30 lives. He donates 29 of his 30 lives. I still die, and then he goes on to finish the game by himself. And I'm sitting there like, oh boy, okay, I'm not very good at video games.
So you played one video game well, and you thought...
I mean, I played the little video games I had by myself in my little bubble.
I think I can relate to that. I think there was a time, because this is before the internet, right? So you're comparing yourself to people around you, right?
Which in my bubble in Colombia was me and my dad, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, me and like my little brother and my friends who didn't really have my family always had like the systems before any like I probably told you this before. I got a Nintendo for Christmas, or me and my little brother got a Nintendo for Christmas the year it came out. So it was NES.
Was that year for Christmas.
For that Christmas, right?
Wow.
It was released like that November or something.
What did it come with? Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers?
And Super Mario Brothers, and maybe that was it. And well, I think the Duck Hunt you had to buy separate with the gun, right?
Yeah.
But Super Mario, I think, was the one it came with. And when they pulled it out of the box, I'm looking at it and I'm like, what is this? And my mom's like, you don't understand that, this stuff is selling out of the mall. Like, it was hard to get one of these.
Yeah.
You should really understand this. And me and my little brother are looking at it like, huh? Because all we knew was Atari.
Right.
So I was looking at this thing, and it didn't even make any sense.
The shape was different. The cartridges are totally weird.
Well, for the first 5 seconds, I was like, I don't even understand what I'm looking at.
What is that? Yeah.
Yeah, like it didn't occur to me that there would ever be another console, because the Atari, because I didn't grow up with I think you grew up with other systems or something. Like you had the idea that there were other systems like the color computer.
Oh, because I was into computers and read the magazines and all those things, but I didn't own all those systems.
But you read the magazine. Like to me, I'd seen Commodore 64s. I think I'd seen Apple IIe's or something. But to me,
pretty much like Atari was the home system.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was pretty good compared to my little brother, and compared to all my friends who didn't have the system.
Right.
And so I can kind of relate to that in terms of this notion that, you think you're pretty good, and then you actually, but I think the reason why I always knew I wasn't very good was I loved going to arcades.
Oh, like actual arcades with Street Fighter and things like that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I guess at that time it would have been Pac-Man and
Right.
Asteroids and
Exactly. And Red Baron, which I loved.
Yeah.
And that tank battle game. I can't remember what that game called.
Warzone or
Maybe. And it was like stick.
Yeah.
And I realized, because I would watch other players, and I was like, whoa, like that guy on Pac-Man is like really good. You know what I mean? And I think I learned that way that, okay, I'm just good in my house. Anyway.
Right. And so like you had quicker exposure to other people.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. So for me, the skill I thought I was good at, but then later realized that I sucked at was dancing.
Oh.
So I never thought I was an awesome dancer, but growing up in a white neighborhood, being even slightly brown myself, I was maybe, I don't know if that was it or my dad has pretty good rhythm. And I'm a musician growing up. So maybe you start to dance around when you're in middle school,
Yeah.
junior high. 7th grade was when I went to my first dance. Yeah. And I feel like I remember getting compliments from other people like, oh, you're a good dancer. And then as time went on, I think it's rare that someone will come up to you and say you're a good dancer.
Right.
You know, if you're at a club and you're just dancing like everyone else, you're 21 years old, people don't really come up to you and say, you're good. You know, you got some good moves. They just talk to you. And
to me, they do.
and if you're a bad dancer,
right.
they're not going to say anything.
Right.
You know, because no one's really paying attention anyway.
Right,
really.
right.
But I had this early experience where I probably was at least a little better than average, dance. And I kind of took it more seriously than a lot of the other boys did too.
Okay.
And it just became a thing. I just believe I'm a good dancer. And so fast forward to I'm dancing with my wife at a club, and I'm and I'm getting more into it, like there's a certain point in the night where you're just like, okay, I'm not just going to sit here and
you're really committing.
I'm going to really like let the arms flail. Yeah. I'm going to let the knees go up. I'm going to let the hips go.
Make a little love.
Yeah.
Get down tonight.
Yeah. And she says to me something, I can't remember when it was, but she says to me like she just says something like, wow, like your legs are getting real high or something like that. And part of it was I was sort of making a joke dance where I was like kicking really high and stuff. But then fast forward, like, I don't know, months later, we're at another club and she says something to me and she says something like, I can't remember what she said, but it was something that was that indicated to me that she was not impressed with my dancing.
Oh no.
And I didn't have a tremendous amount of pride about it, but in my head, I had this working model that
oh my gosh.
I was okay. You know,
Right.
I could hold my own.
I don't know. Kids, when I was a kid, told me I was great. What?
And then like fast forward, like months go by, and I hear a few other because she's not really being overt about it. And then at a certain point, I turned to her and I was like, "Do you think I'm a shitty dancer?" Because in my head, I'm like, you're, because I felt an injustice. Like, how come you're being unfair to me about something that I'm clearly really good at?
Like, clearly you were just joking, but now you're joking again. Wait a minute. What's going on?
Like, how come you're being a dick, And she's a pretty nice person. Like, she's not someone that is mean,
Although she tends to be straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't lie. Let's just put it that way. And so I'm like, do you think I'm a shitty dancer? And what I'm expecting to get is no,
sweetie.
No, you're a great dancer.
So good.
Well, not so much that, but just like, no, you're a good dancer. You're better than average, and I was just being a dick or whatever.
Right.
But what she said was like, well, now Stacy, my wife, grew up like years of dancing. Like from the age of 6 through 20 or something. Or 17
hardcore
dance classes, all the different things. And as an adult, actually, she recently took dance classes as well. She did tap dancing. She's done performances and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, she's not super confident about it, but she's, so this is someone
above the average.
Right. She knows what she's doing. And I guess she knows how to evaluate some schlub like me. And so long story short, she basically, and then I checked in with her a few other times. I was like, wait, so like months later, I was like, so let me get this straight. So you think and then at a certain point I started asking her, so am I not a good dancer? Like at a certain point, it just sort of clicked in my head. And it took me probably a good couple of years to really like adjust to this notion that I suck at dancing.
The new reality. Oh no.
Well, let me. You and I have danced in the same room. What do you? Total honesty.
I just think you're a white guy. Listen,
no honesty.
I'm serious. Like I had the opposite experience, and because of this, I'm gonna say, look, I came from a place where growing up in Colombia, I started dancing late, and by the time I started dancing, I was 14, and a lot of my schoolmates knew how to dance. And I felt like I was shit. I didn't know these moves. What do I do? And it was expected that
you knew how to do Colombia dancing.
No. That's what I hadn't learned yet. And all the kids were.
I thought you said all the kids in Colombia learned how to dance.
Yeah, eventually. I just didn't. My dad didn't teach me, and like my dad doesn't really dance, so I was behind the curve.
Oh.
But at 14, or let's say no, it couldn't have been 14. Probably 13. At 13, my cousin and her friends start teaching me how to dance. And it was like, at first I was like 7 left feet, you know? And I'm like, oh my God. And so eventually I'm like, I got decent enough at merengue and I could sort of halfway maybe understand what they were doing with salsa, but I couldn't really dance it. And then I moved. So when I moved up here and I would go to dances, me and my buddy Ty, we would dance new wave style, looking, you know, like with our hands and really weird. And we didn't mind we were the only 2 people dancing on the damn dance floor. But as far as I was concerned, I'm like, yeah, I realize I suck at dancing, but I just love movement, man. And then years go by. And all of a sudden, I'm like in college and I'm out dancing. And then something changes because, you know, like people I'm dancing with, especially like girls or something, they're like, oh, you really can dance. And I'm like, what?
Well, compared to Americans.
Exactly. All of a sudden I realized, oh, I actually have rhythm and I can move my hips and I can do all these like funky moves. I'm not a great dancer by technical standpoint. I don't know like many moves. I don't dance ballroom or any of that shit.
Okay, but
so when I compare myself to you, I'm like, you're a white dude.
No, don't compare it. You come from, you know, Latin America, which is like completely another category.
Well, what I'm saying is, to me, you don't look any worse, or worse is not even the right word. To me, when I see you dancing on the dance floor, it's sort of indistinguishable from the next dude dancing on the dance floor.
But a lot of the guys dancing on dance floors are not average guys, right? Like average guys. So am I like an average? You know, because
I think so.
Like average guys.
But I mean, I don't see that many. Like, okay, depends on the dance floor, because like usually if it's like a gringo dance floor, it's just a lot of guys just kind of boom, 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 and moving their arms a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't usually see a lot of great dancing to begin with.
Right.
And by the way, I'm not like a great American dancer.
Yeah.
I just add a little bit of Latin thing in there, right?
Yeah.
And so for someone that's not from there, it might look like a little exotic or something. But someone who really knows how to dance on a dance floor is fairly rare.
Right. So I really want to drill down on it, and I'm totally okay with either answer.
Yeah.
So when we would go to C Sound, for example, we would dance on the dance floor. And so there would be, well, let's say there's 3 categories of guys.
Yeah.
There were the guys who were really good, which were very rare.
Rare.
Probably maybe like you wouldn't really see any. Maybe like someone who seems to have like a really good kind of movement of their hips. You know,
Right.
they really know how to kind of get the groove going, and, you know. And then you have the second tier, which is like there's a large percentage of people like that who are, they're competent.
Right.
They don't look like a fool.
Right.
And you know, they are respectable. They're trying things,
Right.
and it doesn't look stupid.
No one is actually noticing that much, because
and then there's another category of dancers on the dance floor at C Sound who are really just shouldn't be on the dance floor.
No. I know those people, and I've been that person at the wrong time with the wrong amount of alcohol.
Am I that person?
No.
Okay, because I think my wife sees me as,
Sees you as
that person.
But to her, from her perspective, a lot of people might be that person. You know,
because I feel like I'm in the category where I can pass for
someone on the dance floor,
a house music dancer. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh! I mean, like when I go to Colombia and we go out dancing, I'm one of the shittiest dancers because like my cousins, for example, especially my cousin Sergio. Oh my gosh, he moves like butter. You know.
I don't know. You look pretty good to me.
Yeah, but in Colombia, it's like a different level.
So, do you have any other skills you thought you were good at, but that later realized you sucked?
Well, actually, so the reverse there was kind of dancing in a way, but in a weird way. Yeah, I'd say there's one more for sure that comes to mind. So I used to think I was really good at reading. I know it sounds funny. Like I just thought, man, I'm an amazing reader. Like when I was in high school, I would read all these like books like Jurassic Park and a lot of Michael Crichton, right? Like, and I was learning about speed reading, so I'd like do a little speed reading and stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm just so good as a reader, amazing. And then like I get into college and I'm actually like so frustrated. I'm like, God damn it, I'm not very good at reading. It takes me forever. I have to like go back and reread and then I just kind of like, I'm at best like an average reader and I might be a sub-average reader because I read slowly. So I'm like an average reader, maybe below average, but like, like I have friends that are like basically almost speed readers and they have great comprehension, right? I feel I have great comprehension, but I take my time. So and in my adult years, I found out, no, I'm not like a great reader. I'm like at best a normal reader. So and actually kind of slow.
As you're talking, as sort of another thing that was like this that I'm reminded of that I want to talk about is that when I was young, I was extremely tall. So this isn't something I was good at.
This, yeah.
But I think it relates to how early experiences can sort of lock in a self-perception,
right.
A self-working model. And without enough data really coming at you later on, you just sort of retain that working model. In the same way that if you're abused growing up, you sort of
right.
retain the working model that the world is a scary place and that you deserve to be punished and all that kind of stuff. Well, I was gargantuan compared to my classmates when I was a kid.
Right.
I was routinely either the tallest kid in my class or like really close to the tallest kid. And all of my friends were, very short compared to me. When I played baseball, I'd walk up to the plate. This is like, 7th, 8th grade or something. I'd walk up to the plate and the opposing coach would be like, back up, back up.
Here comes Honda.
Here comes a big boy, And when I played football, I just dominated when I was like 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Because I was huge. Like imagine playing football against kids your own age and
right.
you're a full foot and 50 pounds
right.
on most of the other players.
Yeah.
I would play football. They'd give me the ball. Guys would be hanging on me and I'd just be carrying them down the field,
right.
know? And when I went to tackle someone, it was like, I just consumed them.
Right.
I was just a monster. And so, I was, at a time.
So that was your self-image was like, I'm a giant.
I'm a gross giant. Like, cause when you're in the 7th and 8th grade, you just want to fit in.
Oh, true.
You don't want to be the tall.
Standing out is kind of odd.
Yeah, you don't want to be the tall weirdo. So I'm walking around in junior high, middle school, and I'm trying not to stick out.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of slouching a little bit, Not entirely, but I'm not proud of being a giant,
right.
A monster. I mean, there were kids in my class, and particularly younger, who, when they saw me, they would run out of fear.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they'd just be like, oh my God.
That's hilarious.
Because, you just have this notion like this Frankenstein's coming up to you. And it didn't feel good. So,
oh my gosh.
It wasn't a great feeling, but there were pros for sure. But anyway, so I just had this working model that I was this giant. And so fast forward, 7, 8 years. And meanwhile, I started slowing down. I got up to about 6'1".
Yeah. Which is tall.
But not.
But it's not a giant.
Right. I mean, 6'3", then you're starting to get into where people go, whoa, that dude's tall. 6'1", not a lot of people are like, whoa, you're tall.
Yeah.
You're just like on the tall side of average, And so, but I totally retained this notion that I was a giant. And so one thing there's two phenomena that happen still at my age of 48. One is that when I'm around people, I just assume that I'm taller than them. Because I just have this assumption that people are shorter than me. And occasionally I'll be around someone who's my height or taller, and there's times in my mind when I'm talking to them and I'm looking up at them and I'm like, what's wrong with this situation? And I'm like, oh yeah, that person is taller than me. And then I think, well, yeah, there's plenty of people taller than me. But there's the other scenario happens, and you've actually done this to me. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I'm not sure.
So most of life, you're sitting around or walking. You're not just standing, erect and talking or taking a picture standing next to someone. And this has happened with you, and it's happened with other people where they will look at me and they'll be like, shit, you're tall.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like you said that to me once or twice.
Yeah.
You were like, I thought we were the same height, but you're clearly taller than me.
Right.
And you're not just kind of, you're like, you're quite a bit taller than me.
So parentheses, because what I was going to say totally ties into this, which I mentioned before, that the night I met you at that karaoke, my impression of you was sort of a small dude singing with a mellow voice, a little mellow song.
Right.
So I had this very kind of almost delicate impression of you. And certainly, if interviewed, I'd probably be like, yeah, he's probably a little shorter than me. Maybe we're the same height, but he's a small dude, It was just crazy. And then, so I probably was shocked at some point. I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, no, that
You're
was
tall.
so there was that, but the tall thing was, I think, maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Maybe we were like standing next to each other taking a selfie or something, and you just kind of looked at me and you're like, you're a lot taller than me, actually. And I'm surprised too, because if before that moment, if you just would have asked me, I would have said, oh, Humberto's probably just slightly shorter than me. But there's times
I'm 5'11". You're 2 inches taller.
And that can actually kind of show sometimes. You know what I mean? Anyway, but so I was recently at a wedding, and one of my friends, Taryn, her, she just looks at me and maybe Omid too. They're just like, whoa, you're actually kind of tall.
Yeah, like when you stand up straight.
and all I'm doing in the moment is I'm just standing up straight.
Right.
And I think a lot of times I just hold myself kind of small. I think because in grade school, in middle school, I was trying to fit in. I was trying to fit in.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right, let's take a break, and we get back. We'll talk about more embarrassing things. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. I'm throwing out opportunities to people if they want to volunteer to the podcast or be an intern. Let me know. Email us at contact@psychologyinseattle.com. We're starting to work with a few people on some exciting side projects. What we're looking for are people who can do things for the podcast. There would potentially be an internship process. Essentially, you wouldn't get paid in the beginning, but maybe you'd get paid in the future if you kind of proved your worth, so to speak. I just want to see what we can do by involving more people. If you just want to do something small, like you're just like, look, I just have this one idea, or I want to help out with your website for an hour or something. Like I'd love for that, obviously, to have the free labor, but also getting fresh perspectives, other ideas.
Berto's dry cleaning.
The podcast is mainly just me. Almost everything about the podcast is me sitting down on my computer and trying to solve a problem.
Right.
And I do not have expertise in a lot of things, but I've had to get a minimal level of expertise to make it passable. And, so my guess is you've seen some of those shaky areas in the podcast, and you probably are like, I could do better than that. And if you're interested, let me know. Also, there are different tiers on Patreon, so you can prove your worth even more so by going up the tiers, and you get different swag. But
it's an MMO.
But also, it just feels nice to see people going, you know what? I'll bump up to another tier. Tweet Humberto at Psych0Berto. And do people ever tweet you?
Yeah. In fact, I was shocked the other day. I posted a couple of great puns, and a couple of people actually liked them.
And watch his YouTube channel, Psychoberto. He hasn't posted anything recently.
Not recently.
But I'm hoping that
There's
he does.
content coming.
What's your next topic?
So I told you, I think, so I have one video queued up about the 80s cartoons. And then my very next one is going to be about, I think it's comic books, but specifically a couple comic books that I like.
Okay.
So not that broad.
Email us if you have trouble with the premium feed. If you want access to our archive, our older episodes, you got to go to our website. And you can actually access the premium episodes there too if you use the password. Join us on Discord Thursdays at 2. I might also do YouTube Live in the future. That might be fun. Also, if you want to talk to me or us, use my email, contact@psychologyandseattle.com, or contact us on the website. My favorite place to contact us is on the website because it asks all the appropriate questions that I need to know from you, like whether or not I can read the email on the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And of course, become a patron. And join us on Facebook and Instagram. Berto and I post a lot of things on Instagram and Facebook. Interesting things, also questions and polls, and we don't post a lot of stuff, but I think when we do, it's.
I don't always post on Facebook, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis.
What invention that doesn't exist would you love to have to make your life easier or more pleasant, Humberto?
Perma sunblock.
Ooh.
Because, I believe in wearing a thin coat of organic sunblock. Not too much, then definitely not a lot of the chemical-rich stuff.
Is that just mud?
Mud, basically, yeah. But the problem is, you always got to apply it, and then you sweat, or you get wet, or you go in the pool, or the thing and stuff. I wish there was a thing I could inject, or I could swallow, or something, where it's like, you're done, son. You've been protected.
Interesting. For me, I want a way to end low-flow faucets and toilets. I grew up at a time when there was a shit ton of flow. And now there's no flow.
No flow.
My faucet just went out in the kitchen, and I was actually really looking forward to replacing it because it's like, I get a new faucet, new functionality. It doesn't have that some weird mold kind of that you can't really clean out of the thing.
Right.
And I installed the new faucet and quickly realized that the old faucet must have been before the low flow situation.
Oh, no.
And here's the thing. Seattle is not suffering from a water shortage.
Right.
We have a lot of water. Now, we can't just willy-nilly, dump it out of the well, but we have enough water to allow for my kitchen sink to have proper flow. I turn on my kitchen sink now, and it is depressingly low flow. Yeah, it's so unsatisfying. And I'm also really tired of toilets because, not to be crude here, but I have to flush 5 times.
Flush.
Yeah.
Now that's just when you're peeing.
Now, I don't want to necessarily go back to the massive flow toilets they had when I was a kid.
Right.
My parents actually had one of those toilets until rather recently.
Where it's like,
well, not only that, but you're looking in the bowl of the toilet, and it looks like gallons of water in that thing. And so I'm not saying that, but not so little flow that it doesn't actually
do the
work.
Job, right?
It doesn't work. Now, we definitely need to, as Americans, switch to the standard that all the other countries seem to be doing around the world, where you have one button for pee and you have another button for poo.
Right.
But we, need to make it work, people. We have the capability, and making someone flush 5 times is not saving water.
Right.
I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, it's controversial, but you're right.
What other invention?
Okay, so the other invention I would love is airplanes that are comfortable and that are quiet.
Oh, well.
And that are...
How much extra would you pay?
Oh, a lot. I'll pay 3 times as much.
Really?
Yeah.
So a plane ticket from here to LA, $250.
I'll pay $1,000.
Really?
Yeah.
You would?
Especially if they...
Because they have that. It's called business class.
Yeah, but it's the same.
Okay, well,
I
first
will
class.
say, like, when Virgin America was still flying, that was the closest I came, because I used to go to San Francisco quite often, and I would upgrade to first class
For how much?
for like $80 one time.
Well, right.
$50 another time.
Yeah.
And then,
But
first
my
class
point
was awesome.
Well, so actually, legitimately want to know this question to the market, not only you, but like
Yeah.
people, because I feel like most people really hate how uncomfortable an airplane is.
Right.
And I also feel like most people hate having to pay extra for things on airplanes.
This is fair.
Like I'll be like, the exit row or the bulkhead will be like $50 more. And I'm like, a flight from here to New York, $50 on a trip that I'm going to spend thousands of dollars.
Right.
That's worth it to me.
Yeah.
Like $50 so I can get a little bit more sleep, a little bit more comfort, and I'm not having someone like bang me with their, with their seat. And I find that with the amount of discomfort and hatred people have for airplanes, they're at the same time, they would be caught dead paying $50 extra for just a little extra comfort.
That's the problem. You're right. That there's not a lot of me. There's a lot of everyone else.
So you and I are like this. We don't. You'll pay the
I'll
$50
pay extra. So it's probably an exaggeration to say I would pay $1,000 to go to San Francisco, but I would pay $50 extra, even $100 extra.
Would you pay double?
Depending on what double means. Like if you mean that I have to pay $500 each trip, maybe. Yes.
Would you pay double to get your own 3-row seat?
3-row seat. I guess it's a part of it is the leg space.
Oh.
Would
you pay double?
The food, or
Really, the food?
Well, because like the food has been reduced to like. Have you traveled to Alaska recently?
Yeah.
It's like
It's been bad.
There's
All
no
of them
food.
All of them are bad.
There's no food, but you can order like tapas or something.
Yeah. Well, you can order it. It's like
Yeah.
$15.
Yeah,
So you'd
it's
pay
not
$100
cheap.
to get $15.
Yeah. Food when I was a kid on airplanes, I loved it.
See, I feel like this is another complaint I have about when people complain about airplanes is that they want it to be super cheap.
Yeah.
And they'll buy, they'll look at Expedia and they'll buy tickets that are literally $5 cheaper.
Yeah.
Because it's $5
Because it's
cheaper.
$5
And then they complain that their experience isn't, that
Yeah.
the airlines are meanwhile trying to get that price down that $5, and
Yeah.
guess what they got to get rid of?
Yep.
Leg room and meals.
true.
And
We work
and-
against our best interests there.
yeah. And the problem is that the upgrades are so much more expensive.
Yeah.
I wish there was an in between, like
Yeah.
the first 5 rows in coach were another foot of leg
Yeah.
room. Like that's all I would need.
Right.
Being a tall person, I have to
Right,
say
right.
like it's not easy. We've talked about it before.
Oh, by the way, gripe of wrath,
Yeah.
which
I
maybe
guess
it's
this is
unfair.
kind of an extended gripe of wrath.
I'm sitting there on the airplane the other day, and I'm playing a video game on my phone. Now, because I have an iPhone 10, the plug for the power is also the plug for the headphone. So I got to make a decision.
Yeah.
And because I was running low on power, I had to plug in the power. So I turned down the volume to basically 2 little lines.
Oh, no.
I couldn't hear it.
Oh.
I couldn't hear it. I just turned it down to 2 little lines. But the audio for this game wasn't that important to me.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting there playing. And the lady that was sitting 2 seats over from me, meaning same seats, but there was no one in the middle, and she's sitting in the aisle. I'm sitting there playing. And then at one point she goes, do you mind putting your headphones in?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, no, not at all. And of course I can't, but I'm just going to turn the sound off. But I say inquisitively, I'm like, wow, you must have really good hearing. And I'm about to say, because I couldn't even hear it. But she must have thought I was being snippy, because she goes, yes, I do. I'm a musician. And she's this older lady. She was like in her maybe late 60s. And then I could tell
I would say, and I don't, I'm a musician.
Yeah, I almost thought, but I just let it slide. But I thought, look, of course I'm going to turn it down. I'm sorry you could hear. I'm embarrassed you could hear.
I hate that. That happened to me recently too. I won't go into the details because I don't want to, but it was a similar thing where someone called me out on something in public, and I instantly was like, "Oh my God, I'm terribly sorry," and I said something like that. I was like, if I knew that I was bothering you, I would have not done it. I'm really sorry. Yeah. And she instantly comes back at me and with more attitude.
Right.
And I'm like, I just told you I agree with you. Yeah. Like, why are you being a dick? Why are you? It's like people get into this dick mode.
Right.
And they can't switch out of it.
Right. And maybe she was anticipating this.
Right. So, I guarantee you what was happening was she's sitting there and the speaker was pointing or whatever.
Right.
And
it was bothering her and it was building. Because
if it was me, it would have bugged the shit out of me too. I probably wouldn't have said anything.
And I honestly, I couldn't hear it, and probably because of the position or whatever.
Yeah.
So I actually thought there's no way anyone else could hear it.
Right. Which is totally innocent mistake. But she's sitting there, she doesn't know that. She's just like, this fucking Yahoo, is playing this thing. Now, what I would have done on an airplane, which I do, is I just put my own headphones on and I can't hear a fucking thing.
Right.
You know, but she's sitting there as a musician, and you know, she's slowly burning, raging, right? And she's like, okay, well maybe he'll stop, and you're just playing it more and more and more, and she's like, fuck, I gotta say something to this guy.
Yeah, right.
Oh God. Okay. You know, and how many times you're probably like the 30th person who she's experienced like this, and you're the first person she's said anything to. And so she says something, and then you're like, oh wow, you must have really good hearing.
It's like,
I'm a musician.
Yes, I do. I'm a musician.
So another invention that would make my life extremely easier and more pleasant is voice text on my computer. So actually, Berto, do you remember making a bet about this not too long ago?
About what? That there would be voice text on computers?
Yeah, that it would be ubiquitous. You and I made a bet that within a short amount of time, that keyboards would on every device would essentially be, if I remember right, and I could remember, and obviously it's recorded on the podcast, so there's an actual empirical thing of this. But from my memory, it was you were saying, because your argument often is the progress of technology is faster, and my argument is often more like, well, we'll see, and I'm not holding my breath that these things are going to happen in a rapid pace. And I think we were talking about AI and that kind of stuff. And you were saying that you and I made a $1 bet, if I remember.
Voice to text?
Yeah. And at the time, phones had it, but you were saying no one would there would be zero keyboards. Anyway.
Well, so the one thing is, I probably wouldn't have said zero keyboards because myself, I can't stand not having a keyboard because I type so fast compared to how I speak or whatever. But what I probably said...
Without mistakes?
I type really well.
Without mistakes?
I type really well.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good, but I thought I was the best in the world.
But I also remember I type all day long. Like
I was making a joke, but
I type all day long.
So do I.
Okay, well, but you talk a lot more. Like you talk a lot. You know,
True.
Well, whatever. The point is, for me, I couldn't live without a keyboard. But so what I probably said was something along the lines of like, yeah, pretty soon everyone will be using voice to text or something. You know?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people are, and in China it's very common.
But I was asking you to nail down the exact timeline, and I think we said 3 years, and we're probably approaching that date. And you were saying, and I was like, okay, at what metric is like you're like most people will be most of the time using voice text? So I think I won the bet. I'm not quite sure.
If that's the bet, then you won it.
We'll have to go back to the archive to
go to the tape.
So if anyone out there knows that bet or even knows what episode, I think it would have been 2.5 years ago, because in my head I know where we were recording.
I mean, what I will say is I've been skeptical from the start about, because I hated the idea, when Kinect came out,
Yeah.
One of the big selling features, like you no longer have to worry about where your remote control is, and I didn't buy any of that. I'm like, I'm not gonna talk to my Xbox. That's dumb.
Yeah.
I will say that I have been converted to talking to Siri all the time.
Right. It's just so funny that Microsoft often comes out with things
Right.
that are actually quite, cutting edge,
Right.
but they don't nail it
Right.
the way other people do.
But
like they came out with a Palm Pilot,
Right.
and then Apple comes out with.
But even with that, I will say we still use remote controls for everything.
Yeah.
And you probably use remote controls when you're turning on your Xbox. You probably use remote controls.
But
I
I
have an Apple TV. I use remote control with the Apple TV.
But I bet you anything in 2 or 3 years, because at this point, like I use the voice commands on my remote control, like Modern Family, or something, or Netflix, because I actually don't know how to get to Netflix other than the voice command. But if I use Plex or if I use YouTube or something, like I don't know how that works, and so I have to navigate. The other thing is when anyway, the point is that I love my voice command on my phone. Like when I text, I'm one of those people that talks the text because I'm pretty good typer on a regular computer keyboard. But on a phone, I am abysmal. Yeah, I'm literally, I hold the phone in my hand with my left hand, and I use my pointer finger on my right hand to type out the text. And there are sometimes when I have pretty lengthy texts that need to be said, or emails on my phone, and I will talk it out. And the Android Pixel phone
does a good job.
The voice command is so good, especially if you know how to articulate and use command words like period and semicolon and exclamation point and smiley face or whatever. And now every, I don't know, 25th word, I have to manually go in there and change it, but it's so much faster. I love it. And
have you tried Cortana and it doesn't work as well? Is that the...
Yeah, Cortana is shit. So one, it claims it can, read your voice. And so you open a Word doc or you open an email.
Right.
And you put your cursor in that thing, and then you have to click a button. Okay, fine. It says start listening. And you start talking, and it listens for a while before it starts to type. So the thing about my Pixel phone is, as I'm saying it, it's instant.
Starts typing.
It's like a split second after I say the word, it's typing it. And because I think that there's an algorithm in there that's like, I bet you he's going to say this word next.
Yeah.
And it gets to know your voice anyway. And I've actually done that with Cortana, and I don't know. It's the Windows voice system thing, voice type thing, and I configured it. It actually made me go through like 25 minutes of talking to like get to know my voice.
Right.
And sometimes I'll say like 2 sentences, and I'll say like, "What the fuck," and then it'll lag, and then boom, it'll type the whole thing out. And then I'll say, "What the fuck" at the end. There's, it takes longer to say it and to wait for it than it would be for me to type it.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. My desktop computer is so much faster than my phone. Like the power of my desktop computer it's got to be, I don't know, in terms of processing speed, memory, everything, it's way faster than my phone. Totally. And yet my phone is whiz bang.
It's because, at Google, in the case of the Pixel, they have teams that are building on the chip machine learning to deal with stuff like that. Whereas the folks at Microsoft that are writing software into Windows, it just runs in software on the CPU, and it's not been a focus for them for as many years. And blah, blah, blah. Well, that's unfair to say. They've been after a speech forever, but they haven't.
Not in the same way.
Yeah. So I think...
So what they need to do is they need to come out with a desktop motherboard chipset that has at least the same capabilities of a Pixel phone.
Right. Like Apple, it would be easier for Apple to tackle this on a desktop than Microsoft, because Microsoft doesn't produce its own. Or an Xbox. Like an Xbox, they could go after that scenario more.
Well,
know.
and I Googled and I looked and I tried to find, and the other thing I was thinking was, well, there's a way, even though it's probably not allowed by software or connections, for me to talk into my phone and have it communicate to my desktop and start typing into my desktop. Maybe a little bit of a lag, but there's a way
that might be better for you.
There's a way to make that connection, but of course that doesn't exist because no one gives a fuck about me. You know, because this was actually one of the things on Discord was that I was getting, it was so much labor of me typing these responses on Discord when people were asking me questions. I was like, there's got to be a way for me to just talk these responses so I can get through them faster.
Right.
Because on Discord, there's dozens of people asking me questions at the same time, and I'm trying to answer all of them. And I could if I could speak it, but I can't anyway. So, you know, I'm sure in 5 years that'll be available. But I kind of feel like, and answer me this, Berto. Developers, hardware, software, are completely not paying attention to desktop computers.
Definitely a true sentiment.
Like they're paying attention to phones,
right?
And kind of laptops. And
well, the new hot thing is home devices, like Alexas and things like that.
Yeah, right. A $50 Alexa thing has the capability to understand voice commands better than my desktop does.
Right.
And there's not a thing I can buy, right, for my desktop to allow me to do that. There's not like an extra card I can buy or something.
Not literally like that, no.
And I feel like my desktop is the same configuration of a desktop like 15 years ago, just a little faster.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah, there is.
Because there's a place for desktops.
So yeah, part of the thing is like your CPU is not well suited for running machine learning, but your graphics card is. So, you know, they could write more software that's just running on the graphics card, but whereas on the, like I said, on phones, they're starting to put dedicated machine learning chipsets that just run the little machine learned models, and they run them really efficiently, and they can get reinforced by additional data, and it doesn't use as much battery, and it doesn't use as much, you know, power, and it's just really efficient.
Huh.
And if they put the same effort into, and hey, for all I know, because Apple just announced new computers, for all I know, they're now starting to deal with computers, but the Windows PC you buy today is not optimized like that.
Right.
It's got an amazing graphics card that'll blow anything on a phone out of the water, right?
Yeah.
And the CPU is certainly fast, and it's got way more RAM but it's not optimized for that, for, you know.
The other thing, explain this to me. So when I install software on my phone, it takes, no joke, 10 seconds. I want an app, I click on it downloads, it installs, and in 10 seconds, I'm using the app.
You're using an app.
On the desktop, which has a way faster connection to the internet and a way faster processor, and, you know, tons of memory. I mean, obviously, we're talking about hard drives, which slow it down a little bit.
Well, what's the kind of app? Like, if it's a big, like Photoshop or Premiere, that's a huge app.
Well, I'm just talking about any app. I can't think of a single app on my desktop where it would take me 10 seconds to download and install.
Well, even the fact that there's just not, it's not like there's a lot of cool,
but why is that?
Useful small apps that you can download for your computer. You know?
But I bet you anything, if you found the identical code for your desktop, there's probably apps out there where, like OneNote or something for your phone and for your desktop. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but probably different versions, I'm guessing.
Right.
But why does it take me 5 minutes on the desktop, but 5
because
seconds?
It's not just the download time; it's the installation and configuration. Sometimes it even has to reboot.
But obviously, the phone has to go through those same steps.
But the phone has been like so. A better example.
I mean, it's so fast on the phone.
Right. So a better example is maybe if you compare it to a console, like a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox X, Xbox One or Xbox One X, because those now have the ability, now these are massive sized games usually, but they have the ability that you don't even have to download the whole thing before you can start playing. You can start downloading, and at some point, maybe 10% of the way in, you can start playing the game. And they've done all sorts of optimizations so that that's possible. On phones, you know, usually the sizes are smaller, and they made it so that like usually you don't have to download everything, install it, reboot the phone, do a whole bunch of steps like that. It really is available as soon as the download is done. There's no additional installation.
But it seems like they would figure out.
Could you do that? Absolutely, you could do that on a.
But
on
they
a
just
computer.
don't.
They haven't, no.
Because they think we don't care or something.
Well, yeah, the Windows model is quite antiquated, right? And so Windows 10, they tried to do all their Windows Store, but it's not really like the App Store yet or anything.
Because Google actually came out with a laptop that is like a Pixel.
Yeah.
It's not the Chromebook; it's something else. And
The Pixelbook.
Pixelbook.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about getting. Have you heard of those? Have you used them?
I have not used them, but I know of them.
Because I was thinking about getting one of those because I really like my Pixel phone, and I wonder if it's better. Anyway, another question from famous patron Lyndon. What is a product which is supposed to solve a problem, but it doesn't? When you buy it, you realize it's worse than useless.
This is going to be somewhat controversial. Magazines. So every time I travel, going back decades, really, every time I travel in the airport, I go to the airport, and it's a ritual of mine to go to the little newsstand and buy some magazines for the trip. And every time I get so excited, I'm like, oh, because that's the only time I buy magazines.
What do you grab, like National Geographic?
Right? Well, so I used to buy, staples for me used to be Scientific American, Discover, Money.
Popular Science?
Not so much, but I've got a couple of those. Men's Health. I would usually grab maybe an Entertainment Weekly.
Men's Health?
Yeah, Men's Health. And then the sort of like the vices were like the Car and Driver or Road and Track, and the worst of the vices was
Car and Driver.
Yes.
You do not seem like a Car and Driver
Well,
guy.
I grew up being a Car and Driver kind of magazine reader, and I'm just not the kind that buys the cars. And then the last one that is the real vice is the Rob Report.
What's that?
It's essentially like a magazine full of 90% full of ads for the wealthiest individuals, and the rest of it is articles about the things that the wealthiest individuals would want.
Oh.
And so it's complete garbage. Oh. But my feeling has always been like, I'm going to fly, and so I should treat myself. And I get so excited, and I go pick out the magazines. I'm like, look at this one. But inevitably, once I get on the plane, I'm like, all right, pull out the first magazine. I'm like, flip.
Boring.
And it's like, first of all, tons of ads. And then when you get to the one article that seems interesting, and so you maybe half read that, then you're done with that magazine. Next, flip.
What'd you buy last time?
Okay, so last time I flew, I bought, by the way, I've stopped buying Scientific American and Discover because they
Scientific American has a lot of good stuff in it.
Well, when I was a kid, there was no more awesomer magazine to me than Scientific American. But I just kind of stopped because I deal with so much of that kind of content in my day-to-day life, like science content or tech content or stuff, that I want other stuff. So I bought Entertainment Weekly that was about the Game of Thrones cast and finale and stuff.
So that was flip.
Yes. Because most of the stuff is still bullshit about actors and actresses and things. And then I got to the Game of Thrones part and I kind of read that one, and then the rest was flip.
Yeah, they have a way of sucking you in. They'll be like, these actors reveal things that they never did before. Or they'll have some other catchy phrase and you're just like, man, I got to know that shit.
That's right.
And then you read it and it's nothing.
It's nothing. It's one sentence in a whole article.
It's just a bunch of words that you already know.
Right. And then I also bought the latest Wired. That was a flip-a-thon. Oh. And I used to love Wired. And every now and then they still have some good articles. Anyways,
I bet you anything, part of the problem is magazines are not lucrative.
Right.
And they just have to fill it with ads.
Yep.
And not with content. And they can't pay journalists to spend 10 weeks on a story anymore.
No.
So I wonder if that's the problem.
I guarantee you that's part of the problem. And then part of it is also that my attention is low for things that are mildly interesting, and a lot of it, the content is only mildly interesting. So
what video game do you play on your phone?
Oh, on my phone, actually, this was an oldie that I used to play, and I recently started playing it again. It's called Field Runners, and it's a tower defense game.
Oh.
I played it like 10 years ago, and then I was playing it again recently.
Yeah, I like. I've gotten into a couple tower games. For me, it's meta pop screens. So you and I, Berto,
Oh, yeah.
are talking on microphones, and we have pop screens. If you don't know what pop screens are, they're that foamy black thing, or some that sort of, it's like a sock that goes over the microphone, or sometimes there'll be a pop screen that will be outside of the microphone, like a mesh membrane that is suspended away from the microphone. Sometimes and I have those kinds of pop screens. I've had all sorts of pop screens. I've had metal pop screens.
Right.
They do not work well enough. They work better than as if you had none on, but I'm going to demonstrate right now. I have a pop screen, and I'm going to pop directly into the microphone.
Ooh,
and you are now
ASMR.
you're getting a crap ton of popping because there's apparently nothing that they can do to popping. And the thing is it seems like it would be possible, but it must not be, because they would have invented something.
I apologize about the popping.
Yeah.
Perdónanos.
Yeah. So now, scientifically, it makes sense, because in order for a microphone to pick up on the sound waves, there has to be an air passage to or at least the movement of air has to occur. Now, if I put like a complete barrier between me and the microphone, then it would be muffled.
Right.
It would sound like I was in another room, and then you would get no puffs, but I'd be close to the microphone, but it wouldn't sound very good. So
the most they can do is attenuate the puff.
Right, like a muffler on a car. You can't get rid of the exhaust coming out or the noise. You can just sort of make it muffled.
Less, yeah.
So because as a podcaster and a singer, puffs are the bane of my existence. Berto, when you puff onto a microphone, you probably never hear it. When I'm editing it, I hear them, and it really gets on my nerves.
Right.
And you and I've directed you on various different techniques, and we're actually using. We've been podcasting for 11 years. I directed Humberto to use a brand new microphone technique, even though he's been using the same microphone for 7 years. Because I'm still trying to find the optimal mic placement and pop screen thing and like mouth placement, and it just drives me crazy. I just wish there was some, they call it a pop screen.
Yeah.
And you buy it and it's like, doesn't really work.
That's a good one. And it's true. I've had the same frustrations.
What about you?
Another object that you want to buy it, you were really excited about, but it's always worse than useless, is, so do you like ice cream?
Love ice cream.
What's your favorite flavor?
Pralines and cream.
Oh, actually, I love pralines and cream. But I have wanted ice cream of exotic flavors. As you know me, I usually go for weird flavors or things or combinations. So when I'm at a store, and I get super excited when they have weird flavors of ice creams. There's this one place I think out in Blaine or something, and they have these amazing ice creams, right?
Blaine by the border?
Yeah.
Of Canada?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
And anyways, and so like I usually, if I go to an ice cream place and I see that they got weird flavors, I usually like get really excited.
Well, did you ever go to that place in Vancouver, Canada? It had like 200 flavors of gelato.
I don't know.
Did I ever go there with you? It was Hastings, I think.
Oh,
anyway.
that sounds really good.
Yeah.
But the problem is usually when I go for the really weird flavors, they're usually very disappointing. And then I regret not having gotten like Marionberry or something.
Yeah.
And it's like my wasted ice cream, and I guess
Yeah.
I'm not going to like throw it away. That's so wasteful.
Yeah, I had a similar path when I went through a Cold Stone phase. Remember Cold Stone?
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know Cold Stone, it's a place you go to and they grab a bunch of ice cream and they put it on a cold stone, a cold slab of marble, and then you ask for a bunch of mix-ins.
Right.
Like Kit Kat bars and peanut butter and fudge and then they mix it all up, but not entirely.
Gummy bears.
Yeah, they sort of mash it together. It's basically you're adding your own chunks to your ice cream. And then they put it in a giant chocolate cone thing, and you
They're
eat
massive.
it, and it's beautiful. And I had a ton of those back in the day. And at first, I was like, "Ooh, I get to choose my own ice cream. I get to choose my own mix-ins," and I would make my own concoctions. And then at a certain point, I think I got lazy, and I just ordered one of the concoctions on the board that they suggest.
Right.
That was closest to the sort of thing I would order. It was some kind of peanut butter chocolate thing. And when I ate it, I was like, this is 100 times better than anything I ever created.
Right.
And I thought, well, of course,
Because they figured out the right balance.
But that's how I think. It's like, well, I'm not going to use their suggestions.
Yeah, I think in general what it is I tend to like things that are outside of the norm when it comes to a lot of things. But the problem is that the norm is there for a reason. Usually the norm is there because it works well a lot of the time, or a lot of people like it or whatever. So, a really good vanilla actually tends to be really good.
Right.
So anyway, that's something that I've noticed sometimes.
When was a time you were incredibly naive about something or idealistic and are now mildly embarrassed thinking about it? These are great questions by famous
Very
Benjamin
good,
Linden.
very. I would not say mildly embarrassed. I'm highly embarrassed. So when I was a kid and a teenager, I was incredibly naive and idealistic about the process of wooing someone to go out with you. And so in my mind, because I had watched movies, especially 80s movies, wooing was like this thing that was like this big performance you had to put on. And
Trench coat and a
boombox.
boombox.
And the point was that it didn't matter how hot the girl was or how low opinion of you she had or anything. With the right combination of moves and like process, you would woo her.
Yeah, and so I just have to chime in, and maybe you're done. Is that this is funny and also kind of tragic, because a lot of women out there, and I think men too, but I think this is more of a heterosexual thing for men against women, is that there's a number. I've heard women tell me stories about how they'll go on a date with a guy or something, and they'll be like, it wasn't really sparks there. And the guy will, on the second date, or like just show up at her work with
To woo her.
with flowers and a boombox and promises of, I got tickets for us to go to San Francisco or something. And the woman's like, what?
Right.
And the guy is thinking, what?
That's what I got to do, right?
Like, shouldn't you? I did all the things.
Right.
You're supposed to say yes. That's how
I
it
even
works.
got a teddy bear.
Yeah. So I think it's both funny to your situation, but it's also
tragic.
Tragic.
Well, and actually, it actually harmed my ability to go on dates when I was starting high school, because what happened is I moved, when I was 15, and in my mind, I couldn't just like ask a girl out. If I was going to go down that road, I had to be prepared for this monumental thing, right? So like I had friends that were girls, but when I thought of like, should I ask this girl out?
Where did you get that, do you think?
I think it's movies and TV, and I think because
was it a function of being in Colombia and seeing a lot of American movies, or was it just
probably?
Would you have done it to Colombian girls?
I did it to Colombian girls when I was in junior high.
Oh,
but when I did it and it didn't work so well, or it took too long, or it was like just weird. Like as an example, one of my most successful relationships when I was in junior high was a long distance exclusively almost phone only relationship. And I didn't have to work hard at all to get that relationship. One day I was playing at my cousin's outside. We were playing like tag or something. And her neighbor's sister shows up, or half sister. And she's gorgeous, and I'm like, oh my God. But I think I said like one word to her, maybe two words. And I was playing tag and stuff. Next thing I know, I hear like secondhand through my cousin that she liked me. And I was like, oh, I liked her too. But she lives like way the hell away. And I'm not in an age where I can go and visit her or anything. So we get the phone number, and we start a phone number or a phone relationship. And this gets super intense. We talk for hours every night for like months, like serious business, like girlfriend.
What grade are you in?
I'm in like 8th grade, maybe.
Oh, I thought you said 2nd grade.
Oh, no. No, I meant, no, I don't know what I would have said, but maybe 7th I might have said, but it was like 7th or 8th. I think it was actually 8th grade. And again, we talked for months, like we're boyfriend, girlfriend. It might have been 2 or 3 months. And then eventually we're like trying to make plans to meet up, but like nothing works. And then eventually we're like, yeah, maybe we just, and then we stopped talking.
Well, wait, what happened to this girl?
Well, I saw her one more time in person, but by then, like, the spark was dead, and we never talked again.
Oh, man.
It's really sad. But my point with that one is I never had to lift a finger.
Well, you always have tag.
I always have to. But I didn't have to lift a finger. Instead, there was another girl that I really liked, and I tried to pull out all the stops, and I did all the maneuvers and stuff, and that went nowhere. So then, when I moved to the States, I thought, okay, it was like this kind of conversation that would regularly happen in my head. I'd see a girl in the bus, and I'm like, okay, she's cute. Maybe I should ask her out. But I'm like, all right, well, I better have a plan. Like, I got to figure out, like, the crazy, amazing dates I could take her on and all the things, and I probably have to write a song, and so I would get overwhelmed, and I'm like, it's too much trouble. Never mind.
Meanwhile, she's just like, I hope he just says hi.
Well, which is what, in fact, literally happened with one of them that I, for a whole year, wanted to ask out. And then, more than a year. It was like a year and a half. And then at the year and a half mark, when I finally asked her out, she's like, oh, I thought you'd never ask, And I was just like, why was I waiting? It's dumb. But again, I just had this vision in my head of this amazing process I would have to go through to woo a girl.
So what I was incredibly naive about and then realized, and I'm now embarrassed about, are 2 things that I'll mention. One is kind of a thing that I think a lot of people share, which is that I believed that the internet would solve all of our problems. I didn't think it was going to create a complete utopia, but I thought it would help democracy. I thought it would help small businesses. I thought it would help the marginalized, and I guess it has to some extent. I thought it would eliminate loneliness to a good degree, and it has basically done none of those things, and made some of those things worse in a way that I really did not think would happen. I thought the truth will win, and facts will win. And the only reason why people believe in pseudoscience and silliness and prejudice is because they don't have the facts. And once they're exposed to Wikipedia, it'll solve all that problem. And what I realized, and all the sociologists realized, was that motivated reasoning and echo chambers know no bounds. So I don't know how embarrassed I am about it, because I feel like a lot of people believed that at the time, and I think it was rational, I think, on some level, to believe it, but it's certainly something I feel like I was incredibly naive about. The second thing is that to this day, I still naively believe, to some extent, not as much as I used to, that when I'm in conflict with someone, or when I see people in conflict, that a very quick turn to honesty, authenticity, and leveling with someone will solve it. This was something that I believed. You have beef with someone at work that you can tell there's tension. And maybe you can even identify a conflict that you were in the past. And I just have this naive belief that if I just go to that person and I just level with them, and I'm just like, look, Jane, I just want to tell you that I feel tension between us, and I don't like that. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know if it's your fault. I don't know if it's my fault. I don't know if I really care.
Right.
If you want to talk with that, that's fine. But I just want to tell you that I'm on your side, and I kind of wish we could just put whatever tension we had in the past behind us and We can move into the forward in the future and be at least pleasant, if not, close. I really genuinely want that. That has worked 1% of the time in my life.
Wow, that's really low.
It's happened with you.
Yeah.
You and I have leveled with each other, and it's worked.
Yeah.
But lots of other people, and can you guess why it doesn't work?
Maybe, well, for one thing, I think people are not necessarily at the same point aligned mentally, or at the point of being receptive to that kind of conversation at the same time. Like maybe if you tried it at a different time and context, it might actually do a better job. And another might be that there are underlying reasons that you can't overcome in those statements. For example, I've definitely had that problem a couple times or a few times where I go to try to be, just like very honest and open with someone. And then what it turns out, I'm like, I think this person fundamentally doesn't like me, Yeah.
So I interpret it differently, slightly, in that the person has a fundamental personality defensiveness issue that is quite ingrained. That is what led to the tension to begin with, because I don't have tension with most people.
Yeah.
They have tension with me. And by me leveling with them doesn't change the fact that they have something defensive about their personality.
Right.
And even if they temporarily kind of pull out of it, they're going to quickly go back to it because there's something about the personality that requires them to have tremendous defensiveness and distortion about me and other people.
Yeah.
And leveling with them isn't going to change that. Last question here. What do you think of reaction videos?
Man, snooze fest, I don't get them. I don't like it. I don't want to play with it.
Yeah, me too. I don't watch them. They're not appealing. I'm sure for people, if you like them, that's fine. Art is art, or entertainment is entertainment. But honestly, they almost always seem fake to me.
Well, this started, for me, it started with the Two Girls, One Cup. So I never watched the video, but I remember there were all these reaction videos. And because I didn't want to watch the video, I thought, well, maybe I'll watch a reaction video, I guess. And I watched the reaction video, and I'm like, I think the only one that I thought was mildly entertaining was Joe Rogan's reaction video. Everyone else, I was like, what? This is so boring. Is this what my life has come to? I'm not even watching the content they're reacting to. And now I'm watching them react to something I don't even know what they're reacting. Like, no, I'm done with this.
Well, actually, I take it back. There is one version of reaction video that I love, and it's Leslie Jones from Saturday Night Live.
You mentioned that, watching Game of Thrones.
Watching Game of Thrones. Watching her watch Game of Thrones is one of the funniest, most enjoyable things I could spend my time
I guess
doing.
if I have... So one exception here, and I think you're leading to this, is... First of all, she's a funny person. So if you grab a funny person and you have them MST3K kind of commentating on anything, it might actually be entertaining.
And it's not geared for clicks. It's genuine reaction. Yeah. And it's genuine enjoyment of something, so...
but in general,
it just occurred to me, wait, I actually really like a version of this reaction.
Well, so MST3K was a reaction movie video or videos,
Yeah.
where you're watching movies, but the movies are not really the point. The point is their commentary.
Right. So I guess there's very particular rare. Now, the typical reaction video on YouTube is, I filmed 5 people reacting to Bohemian Rhapsody, and they've never heard it before, and I just find, Well, I'll take that back. Actually, there's another form of reaction video that I enjoy.
Kids?
The kids reacting to like Nirvana or something.
I tried those, and I thought, so this would have been in one of the earlier categories. It would have been the kind of thing that I thought would have been great, and then I watched it, and I'm like, I still don't care.
I mean, now, most of them are probably, or, if you watch 2, you're bored already.
Yeah.
But every month I might come across something that I think looks a little cute and, watch it. Or they'll get old people to
Right.
watch a Miley Cyrus video or something.
But that's part of it. It's like, it's so predictable.
Well, sometimes it isn't, or I guess more broadly, reaction videos, like there was one I remember watching where they had Korean people or maybe Chinese people would eat. Oh yeah, it was Chinese people eating Chinese American food. So, they got food from a quote unquote Chinese restaurant in like Seattle.
Yeah.
From a very traditional, the chow mein and the mushu pork and
Right.
whatever. And they give this to actually Chinese people and they ask them to eat it and react to it. And that was kind of interesting.
Well, but so these are different, right?
But they're reaction videos.
But it's not. So I guess what I mean is a narrower type of reaction video where you don't even see the content they're reacting to. You might know of the content. It could be you're watching the latest Miley Cyrus video with Wrecking Ball and they're reacting to that. And just their, sorry, the face they made or how shocked they were or something. And I just find that kind of boring.
Yeah.
Even with like, oh, is the old person gonna be shocked by the new music, or are they gonna be that kind of cool older person that's like, I like this. This is like when I was a kid. It's boring.
Right. 99% of just even that category,
Yeah.
I'm sure I wouldn't like, but occasionally I've seen one where the first, 3 minutes have been worth my time.
Right.
Let's put it that way. All right. Well, that was a grab bag episode, Berto. In which
It was fun. Great questions from the patron.
I got to say one thing that I don't have we talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, on the podcast about the patron who figured out the jingle?
Yes.
We did talk about that
Yeah, because
on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was I thought it was on the podcast.
Well, either way, I just want to briefly say, I don't know if I got her name, but
Maybe it wasn't on the podcast.
it might not have been, but
You and I definitely talked about it.
yeah, patron Mary Ellen,
Yeah.
she cracked the code on the intro jingle, which some of you love and some of you hate. But it's here to stay, people. So,
It's fine.
Since the beginning of this podcast, I wanted a jingle exactly like that.
Uh-huh.
And it took me 11 years to get the time to do it.
Right.
And it took me like 20 minutes. And because it's just me singing like a
Multiple voices, yeah.
5-part harmony thing. It's actually I think it's 5 voices,
Nice.
5 different distinct,
Love it.
but it's one chord of 3
Yeah.
notes. But anyway, so Mary Ellen guessed it that some people thought it was Morse code. Some people thought it was, very complicated. Like one person thought it sounded like Morse code where it would be BEAT, like beat. And then another person thought it was maybe it was TUN for tune. And so they're really another person said, so finally I just split it into 2 four-tone segments, which gives XY. Do you know what the hell this guy's talking about?
XY.
So he split
yeah.
into two four-tone segments, which gives XY.
Meaning gives like coordinates if you were going to draw on an XY plane.
Oh, which gives XY, which could be relevant to your several podcasts on gender politics.
Oh, never mind then.
Right. He
Never mind.
got an X and a Y out of 2
right.
four-tone segments.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe like because the notes cross
Maybe.
over or
I don't know.
something? I'm
So-
completely boggled by that one. But anyway, what it is Psychology in Seattle, if you spell it out, only has 5 letters that correspond to chords
Right.
or notes on a scale, which is C, so S-E-A, and then there's an E at the end of, psychology. So
Right.
you have C, so C and then G. So you have C and a G. Those are both chords. And then in Seattle, you have an E, an A, and an E. So the chords are C, psychology. That's the G chord. And then that's the A, that's the E, Seattle, and so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
E-A.
Very cool.
So it's very simple.
Right.
because I don't like to be Humberto and make super complicated.
Well, that was the part of the problem. So I sadly, you know how you said you kept meaning to make the jingle and you never had time. I kept meaning to go home and analyze it and decipher it, but I never had time. But I knew from the start that I was sure that it was like the notes had something to do with it.
Oh, okay.
But I was expecting, I was thinking, oh man, I bet you it's gonna be some psychology reference.
It would have taken you
Freud thing.
2 seconds.
I don't think so. I don't think I would have realized that it was from the letters from the Psychology in Seattle.
You would have thought I was trying to spell something else out.
Yeah, because I would have been. I probably would have definitely known the chords because that was the first thing I would have done is like, okay, what are the chords?
So if you got CGEAE, what would you have thought?
Well, just hearing it there, I'm like,
Carl Jung?
No, like some molecule. Or then I was actually gonna look at the line itself, like each harmony line, and I was gonna analyze the ratio between each one. But I'm like, but
they're
Kirk,
all major
was
chords.
he gonna put that much effort? Well, yeah, but you know, like depending on which lines you took, the ratios could get higher or lower, you know, from one note to the next.
Okay.
Because you could go up to a fifth or a third
okay.
But anyways, I would have done a ton of stuff. I probably would have never gotten just the basics.
I tricked you at your own game.
But I sadly didn't even get that far because I never did it.
Yeah, so patron Mary Ellen was commenting on Facebook, and she said, well, at first I thought maybe it was you have the CGEAE, that's just the letters of Psychology in Seattle. But that seemed too simple. So I went on to other things, and I was like, actually, you got it right.
That's it, yeah.
So congratulations, patron Mary Ellen. I asked you what you wanted, and you said you wanted a picture drawn by Humberto.
And it is on its way.
What is it going to be of?
Should I say? I can say the theme. I can say the theme.
Okay.
It involves my favorite comic book series.
And take a picture before you send it.
I did.
And Mary Ellen, make sure you post it on Facebook for all to see.
Yes.
So that does it for that rambly episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us out there. Please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.